Hey y'all, my dad hated this recipe and we're gonna find out if I do too. Today, we're gonna be making my grandmother's salmon loaf. This is something that I remember my grandmother making every time we would go to her house for dinner. It seemed like it was like an every visit thing back in the 70s and 80s. And I remember that I liked it. And this was one of the recipes that I was really wanting to find once I found the recipe boxes. And I talked to my mom, and it was very funny when I talked to her about the salmon loaf. She said that Dad absolutely hated this, but he felt really bad and didn't want to insult his mother. So he didn't say anything, and she thought that meant that he liked it. So that's why she kept cooking it over and over again. So lesson to us all, speak up, but do it nicely. But we're gonna recreate this recipe. And I found a couple of things on here that were, some things I didn't even know what they were. I had some questions for my mom. I had to give her a call. So let's get into it. We'll talk about all those next. Okay, first thing on this salmon loaf, it says to take a 1 pound can of salmon and drain it, saving the liquid. So we're going to do that first. Okay, we are going to take the salmon juice, that sounds gross, and pour it into our little cup measure here. And it says to add enough evaporated milk so that you get to 1.25 cups. So we're going to add this small can of evaporated milk and get us up to 1.25 cups. And there we go right there. Next, the recipe says to go ahead and add the evaporated milk and salmon juice, that still doesn't sound appetizing, to 1 cup of bread stuffing. And I use the Pepperidge Farm bread stuffing. And it says to let this stand until soft. Now we're going to combine the salmon, the stuffing mixture, the egg, and the next 5 ingredients in the recipe is what it says. Now the recipe calls for parsley, but in talking to my mom, we don't remember parsley, we remember dill. So we are going to put dill in this today. And I'm gonna go with about a tablespoon of dill, and I'm gonna save some for the topping for later. I'm gonna add 1 small chopped onion, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of accent seasoning. And I had to look this one up. I did not know what accent was. And I found it at the grocery store. It's actually just MSG. Next up is a 1/4 teaspoon of Tabasco sauce. And I think I'm just gonna measure this with my heart. Let's get this all mixed up. The next thing this recipe called for is 1 cup of hot, well-seasoned, medium white sauce. And I had absolutely no idea what that was. I had to actually Google it. And it turns out it's bechamel sauce, so butter and flour and milk. But in talking with my mom, we don't remember there being a bechamel sauce on top of this one, Mom says that she's made this recipe a couple of times at home back in the 70s, and she remembers cream of asparagus soup. And I had never heard of that. You can get it at the store though. It's still made. H-E-B has their brand, so I've got cream of asparagus soup. I'm gonna thin that down with a little bit of milk, and again, because we do remember that dill coming through so much, I'm gonna add a little bit of dill to that. I'm gonna add just a little bit of milk. I don't want it too thin. I don't want it soupy when we put this on top. I'm gonna add that dill in now. Stir that in. Okay, I'm gonna let that heat through, and then we'll top our salmon loaf with that when we're done. Okay, we've actually been in for 50 minutes, and I think it's time to go ahead and take her out. Here she is, right out of the oven, and it looks like we got a little browned, a little bit, maybe a little blackened. We'll call it blackened salmon loaf. Maybe I should have kept it to the 40 minutes. I kept checking it and it kept looking a little like bubbly, like it was still a little wet. So that's why I went a little bit longer than what the recipe called for. Again, the recipe called for 40 minutes. I went 50, but I'm gonna go ahead and cover this with some of our cream of asparagus soup. I ended up probably about 1/4 cup of milk, right around there. Not quite 1/2 cup. I don't think I'd use that full 1/2 cup. All right, so we have this topped. I probably should have saved a little bit of the dill, and then I could have sprinkled some on top and done like, you know, made it really pretty. But here we go, salmon loaf. I'll get it plated up for myself and we'll try it and see what we think. All right, moment of truth. We're gonna try it and see if I hate it or if I love it. Was my dad just being dramatic? Is it really gross, or is it actually good? So let's see, we'll take a bite here. Let's get some of this sauce on there. All right, here we go. I mean, it's really good. I really like it. I like the dill in there. The center of it does feel a little soft, like a little wet. Like maybe we should cut down on the fluid next time. Maybe instead of 1 1/4 cup of the salmon juice and the evaporated milk, maybe we'll knock that down to 1 cup and see if that doesn't come up a little bit better, because it seems just a little soft. But really good. I like that cream of asparagus soup on top. I think that makes a great addition, and I really love the dill in there. I'm glad that we went with that instead of the parsley. So I think this one was a winner. I think Dad was being dramatic. This is really good. I hope you enjoyed joining me on this little adventure with the salmon loaf. Comment down below if you have any recipes from your family that you really secretly hated, but you didn't want to tell your loved ones about. So we will see you next time. I'll go dig through the recipe boxes and we'll come up with something else for our next video. Thanks. Bye, y'all.